Hello everyone, and welcome back to Soul GPS, where we learn to trust our intuition again after having been through abuse in order to live the life that we desire. So today I wanted to talk to you about CPTSD and flashbacks and what they are and the role that they play in our recovery. So as I had mentioned in my earlier videos, and that's something you probably know, there's a connection that exists between narcissistic abuse and possibly what had happened to you in your childhood. Meaning that if you were a healthy individual with boundaries, solid boundaries, and an ego that has developed properly, you probably wouldn't have fallen into the trap. Although there are cases that I'm hearing of where people who are pretty solid can still get entangled in the antics of a psychopath or a narcissist, but it is less likely. It's less likely to snowball down the path the way that it happens to people who have been through abuse already before. So this is in an effort to help you see the connection between how the abuse cycle progresses inside of a narcissistic relationship and how the abuse cycle occurred back in your childhood and the repercussions, the blueprint it had left in you that continues to play out even when you're not being abused. And the key word here is flashback. So I am talking about this based on quite a few things that I've learned, and mostly through studying Pete Walker's book, CPTSD From Surviving to Thriving. I highly recommend this book. It is immensely rich in information. But there is this one section that really intrigued me, and I read it several times and I applied it to myself in order to disentangle this mechanism, which is why I wanted to make this video and tell you what I learned. So it's not just theory, but it's also practice of how you do this. So first of all, I want to explain to you several terms because they all stack up into this almost like a pyramid-shaped process that exists within us, and most of us are never even aware of this. And I would say that people who have gone through abuse have severe forms of CPTSD, which is a complex form of post-traumatic stress disorder in which we replay a trauma that had occurred in the past, even if there's no threat. And I would say that most healthy people probably don't go through this to the degree that we do. But given the society in which we live, where it's so easy to get traumatized, and you don't have to, go through somebody beating you up in order to experience trauma, depending on the person that you are, depending on how sensitive you are, it can be somebody just dropping a comment when you were little, say you were performing in front of your parents and singing and dancing, and somebody said something really mean to you, and you might be now 50, 60 years old, and you still remember that. And maybe had they not said that, and had you not been as sensitive as you were, you would have gone on to have a career in singing. I mean, who knows, right? But these things do have an impact. And the sooner we catch them and the sooner we disentangle this dynamic, the more successful we can be in being ourselves, essentially, which is what this journey is about. It's a journey back to us, back to ourselves. So here is how this works. So beginning with a trigger, which creates the flashback. So flashback is when we remember something that happened in the past and has nothing to do with the here and now, but still we feel what we felt back then, and it can sneak up on us out of a sudden, out of the blue. So for instance, you could be walking down the street and see somebody carrying a balloon, and this is just completely innocuous, innocent situation, but you suddenly remember that this birthday party, your subconscious is picking this up, at which you were shamed intensely, and you don't know why, but this child with a balloon passes you in the street and you're just feeling like your gut is twisting, right? So what I want to say about abuse, and especially childhood abuse, because it happens so early in life, it often happens before our cognitive faculties are fully developed, which means that we communicate with the world and receive the world primarily through our emotions. So we weren't able to tell ourselves, hey, Kathy, or hey, Michael, you know, what your parent is telling you right now is blah, 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 and it means this and that because they themselves have been abused and they're just assholes and it has nothing to do with you. We don't have the capacity. We take it on. In fact, we believe it's our fault. We believe that everything is our fault. So a lot of these emotional states that invade our daily life out of blue, if we have been traumatized as children, they are in such subterranean levels that it's really hard to access them and understand them and make sense out of them because they happened so long ago. All we get is the emotion. But there is a way to disentangle it, and I'm going to show you how. So what you do is when you feel yourself, first of all, sliding into this weird state of emotion that just makes no sense, tell yourself that you are going into, you're in a CPTSD flashback, or you are having, you know, some kind of a remembrance. You're going down that spiral. You're having a crash. That is going to help you to at least not beat yourself up or get caught in, you know, the thinking that comes with it. Oftentimes it's some form of a loop thinking, and that loop thinking is a few levels down, but it peaks its head pretty early on and can get you caught up in this dance between emotion and thought that just goes on and just keeps pulling you lower and lower and lower. The reason why this happens is because once we get flashbacked, our initial impulse is to fall into our 4F state, which is fight or flight or freeze or fawn. And those four are, to explain a little bit more. So for instance, something happened to you in the past as a child, you probably have learned to cope with it in order to survive by using predominantly one of those states. So reactions, I'm sorry. So fight is basically, you know, you respond with aggression, you argue, you face whoever's telling you something head on. Most likely, if you're watching this video, you're not one of those people, because this is typically what the narcissist, the psychopath, the sociopath, you know, the people on the cluster B spectrum, that's what they typically do, is they aggress, right? We're most likely doing the other three, which are flight. So you can do it literally by removing yourself from the situation, by feeling like you just want to hide, like you want the ground to just swallow you up. Or you go into hyperactivity, so you distract yourself with busyness. Freezing is disassociation. I used to do that a lot. I used to just escape into the world of fantasy. So I would be sitting still, or I wouldn't leave a place necessarily, or get my mind engaged into anything active, as in focusing. I would let myself just roam, you know, it's my limbic brain. Actually, daydreaming is a limbic brain activity. I just recently learned that. I didn't know that before, because that's when the mind is unfocused and you just wander and wander. It's the opposite of focus. It's also good. We need it, especially after we've been straining and focusing on a task. It's good for us to relax and then get into, it can be a very creative zone as well. So it's nothing wrong with it. But if you're doing it repetitively as means to escape in childhood, that makes it really difficult for you to then later deal with the actual reality that is around us, right? And I know I've been there. I've had some trouble with that. Fawn, or some call it fuck, is what it says, especially the second word. Basically, you trying to appease your abuser. And when I think of fawn, I think of Stockholm Syndrome immediately. The two really connect, because it's of course trauma bond. It's synonymous with trauma bonding. But where it originated was in a situation in Stockholm when there was bank robbery, and the criminals came in and took over the bank and held the people hostage for quite a while. But then they would let some of the people use the bathroom. They would seem nice, right? And then after the whole fiasco, the whole situation diffused, it turned out that couple of the people that were held hostage took so much, felt so compassionate and empathic, tells you what kind of people they were, right? Towards the abusers, that one of them, I think, married one of the criminals, and the other one did some active petitioning and money gathering to get them out of jail. So it is basically if a captor were to, or for instance, if you were to be kidnapped and held somewhere, you know, you might feel that I realize this is extreme example, but in some ways it's similar to what happens in narcissistic relationships and in childhood when we're basically held captive. We can't go anywhere, and we think of our parents as God, so they can have their way with us. But for instance, you have been kidnapped, and in order for you to survive, in order for you to get food or to be able to use the bathroom, you become really sweet and nice towards the captor, and then they're sweet and nice towards you, and you create this form of a sick bonding that ensues. Right, you get the point. So this is the 4F state, and typically when we get triggered by some form of an abuse, we escape into one of those. Maybe we have multiple that we escape to. Maybe it depends on the situation, but it's something to get really familiar with. So when you're feeling CPTSD crash come over you with maybe through intrusive thoughts post breakup, maybe you're already way down the road in recovery, but it still keeps coming up. That's what was. Watch for the pattern in which tries to slide you down towards one of those F's, right? You can look at it like 4 little slides, and you're sitting on top, and you want to naturally, you have natural proclivity to go down one of those paths. Now, if you catch yourself and don't do it, if you sit with it, what happens? You're going to notice something really interesting. You're going to notice 2 very nasty, toxic, intense emotions. They're not toxic and nasty in a general sense, but in this sense they are. They feel wet and dark and cold and just grimy, and there are shame and fear. Shame and fear. That's what's underneath the 4F state, because the reason why is when we were being abused, these are the 2 primary emotions that get triggered. There can also be guilt. Say if you were in you're raised in a household with borderline parent, which happened to me. One of my predominant emotions was guilt, right? But still, when I'm feeling this, when I was watching this 4F state from triggering, fear and shame were actually the ones that showed up, not even guilt. They have an intense force, intense gravity that just sucks us down. They just have this, they have this pull, this really intense pull to get us into this. That's kind of like a frozen state, I find, because when you're in it, it's like stomach hurts, you feel heaviness in your chest, you just feel like you want to jump out of your body. It feels very uncomfortable, very. So that's what's underneath the 4F state. Now, if you go deeper and if you hold it, if you breathe into it, what you're going to notice is the critic. So it's kind of like moving back in time through the abusive situation. So you have someone say something to you or do something to you, the abuser. So that's the words are coming at you. You feel shame and fear as a result, mostly fear of, because as a child, you're fully dependent on the people you are in the house with, right? So the fear is primarily like, if they're not loving me, if they're not taking care of me, like where am I going to go? What am I going to do? So it's literally the fear of death. It's that primal, it's that intense and that direct. And the shame is for something you've done, like apparently you're not what they want you to be. So there's something wrong with you. There's a flaw that is making you unlovable, and therefore your parents are not giving you the love and the attention that you need. Instead, they're giving you the opposite, and that's triggering the shame and the fear. There's one more layer below it, and this is the bowel of the bowels of the CPTSD crash. And Pete Walker says in his book, if you can work on that next level that I'm going to mention, that's like the bottom, you're making real good progress. But I warn you, it's really hard, but it's doable. It's doable, but be easy on yourself. So what it is, the basic level is abandonment depression. It's a feeling of being so totally abandoned, just dropped, just feeling unimportant, feeling like you don't matter, feeling like almost like you don't have a right to exist. So I remember being in that state as a child, and I did not know what it was. I remember I just felt really empty. It's kind of like it was in my stomach. That's where my wound manifests, is my stomach, and it felt like it was like piercing, like somebody pierced me, and then they just kind of moved the object inside. I mean, it was like making me nauseous, so it had a nauseous component. Pay attention to where it manifests in you, and typically when you get triggered, when CPTSD hits you, right away something lights up in your body. It's that core area that connects you with that childhood trauma. So it's not that you have to get all the way down to abandonment depression to find it, to locate it. It will show itself pretty early on. In fact, this might be the source of your illness, chronic illness, because if it's left untreated and left without any attention or love, which is what it really essentially needs, that's the cure for abandonment depression, is self-love. But if it's left untreated, it can manifest in all sorts of maladies. In my case, it was, everything starts in it's my lower back and it's my digestive system. So it's all in that area. So, okay, so let's recap. So you get triggered, right, by something that's completely has anything to do with being threatening, because you've been so adrenalized so many times. Then you have a tendency to slide towards one of those F's: fight, flight, probably not fight, but maybe flight, freeze, or fawn. If you don't do it, and if you hold yourself, if you breathe deeply and just hold it, you're going to notice fear and shame. That's going to bubble up, surface up, and that's going to try to pull you down. If you won't let it, you hear the critic. The critic is going to tell you how you're just a piece of shit, how you just don't matter, how you're stupid, like who the fuck do you think you are, and just all sorts of stuff that you used to hear as a child. And what's really insidious about this is that once they've told you this enough times, maybe even didn't tell you directly, like in my case with my dad. So my dad, he was a neglectful parent, so he was just gone all the time. And in some case, looking back, no wonder it was just hell at home, so he didn't want to be here. But he himself isn't a saint, and he has done his share of fucked up things. But so he was the neglectful. So what he communicated to me, and to all of us actually, all of us, there were 3 daughters, communicated to us, is that we don't matter. We don't matter. We're not important. We're not lovable. Because if we were, he would be here and he would be our parent, right? But he wasn't. He was gone. He provided for us, but he didn't have any contact with us, or hardly any. So it might not even be verbal. And so my self-critic was often, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. It was like all my life, that's what's been haunting me. And that's where that came from. So that's next, is a critic. And the critic is going to sabotage your sense of well-being, is going to sabotage your efforts at trying to get somewhere in your life. So it has tremendously important repercussions when it comes later down the road, when you're trying to get something off the ground and you might not be able to. That may be the reason. So you see how this narcissistic abuse thing and getting into this information can help you heal at all levels. Like once you get this, once you process all of this, you're going to be a free human being who just can soar. You're going to soar. So that's the silver lining on all this. And then, so underneath, and if you ignore the critic, if you sit with it, if you just continue breathing, continue accepting yourself, sending yourself love, more and more love, staying with it, then it will plunge you right down into that dark sea of abandonment depression. And all you have to do is be okay with it and just hold it. And even better, imagine yourself as a child. Imagine that little boy or a little girl who were neglected, who were abused, nobody wanted to listen to. It was crying all day and nobody would come to hug you. And eventually what you did is you stuffed all those feelings inside you and you brushed them aside. Perhaps you became somebody else that you weren't really intended to be initially. You became somebody who would please others just to get a smidgen of love. You would work yourself to death. Maybe you become a perfectionist to get that love. So all of it is a result of your basic needs as a child not being met. This bottom line was not your fault. You are a wonderful, beautiful person who has so much to offer in this world that really needs it. The world needs us all to, figure our shit together. So you have all that within you. As a matter of fact, you're even stronger now. You're even better now because now you're aware. Now you're aware of what the world really is. And this journey is going to take you deeper to becoming more aware of who you are. So what are some steps in overcoming, other than what I had already mentioned, in overcoming this terrible state of abandonment depression, this CPTSD crash? So I would say it happens on 3, maybe 4 levels. The fourth I will mention, but it's up for interpretation, up for individual interpretation. But step number 1 is cognitive healing. And cognitive healing is basically really understanding this process that I had described. You might want to actually write it down, CPTSD, 4F state. I'm just going to make sure I catch them all. I'm sorry, you get flashback, CPTSD flashback, then you get the 4F state, then you have fear and shame underneath it, and then the next level is the critic, and the final level is abandonment depression. So that's how they stack up. So next time you experience something like that, just trace it with curiosity. Just go down the path and see, oh wow, this is what it is. And the more you give it attention, actually the less it's going to haunt you. It's amazing how that works, right? It's love, essentially. By giving it attention, you're giving it love. Love and attention, I feel, are synonymous, or should be synonymous in some way. So that is basically mindfulness. That is when you go within and you trace your own thought pattern and you get to understand it, you get to illuminate it. So it will lose its power over you and it will actually become empowering. Say no to anticipate next, and you'll be able to breathe into it and move past it. Second level healing is emotional healing. So they all tie together in this process, but basically, and I had already mentioned it, is you sit with it. And you sit with your emotions and you open up to them. You're going to feel that fear, you're going to feel that shame, but maybe other emotions will come up too, such as guilt, maybe jealousy towards your sibling that got much better treatment than you did. Maybe there is disappointment, really deep disappointment. Maybe it's dejection, like a very deep, I had a lot of dejection, just deep feeling of just yuck, just not wanting to even go forward in life. Maybe you'll feel anger, which is a really healthy sign that things are moving, and you have every right to feel angry. So hold it. Hold that feeling, stay with it. It is going to make you emotionally intelligent. This practice will make you emotionally intelligent. Finally, somatic healing, which I think is really cool because you can actually move your body in a way that is opposite of where the emotions are pulling you. So for instance, being in the 4F state tends to have us curl up, just whether we're getting ready for a fight or whether we're, fawning, or if we're running away or disassociating, there's this tendency for the body to shut down and for the body to contract. So by stretching and opening your body up and inviting breathing, by moving, by having aerobics exercises, all of this counterbalances, unwinds the tendency for us to want to shut down. And the final step is spiritual healing, and that's the reason why I leave it optional is because everybody has their own beliefs. Spirituality is I think extremely intimate, personal thing. So if this helps you in any way, then absolutely go there and learn to trust the universe again and lean into it. I mean, if you are doing research right now, and if you're doing your healing work, if you're listening to this, then you're definitely on your path of healing. So the universe does have your back. God is here for you, and you can turn towards those powers, those higher powers, and align with them and invite them into your life, so that your life can be even more expanded. I understand if you've been abused in cults. I've had some experience with that. I might share it in another video, because it was really enlightening, and how it just actually made a video about how narcissists use hypnosis and transinduction, and that's what cults do a lot too, and people of this form of mentality. So you might want to watch that. But your spirituality might be severely impaired because of that. You might feel like you don't even want to go there, and if that is the case, then do that. Don't go there. Give yourself time. Most importantly, learn to find an allegiance with yourself. Become your own champion. Be there for yourself. Learn to stand up for yourself. Draw boundaries around you so that none of this happens to you ever again, right? So when you go out into the world, you're walking in as a sovereign individual who has every right to guard yourself, who has every right to say no. You are going to get through this with enough awareness, with enough practice, with enough of your loving attention. You will get through this, and you're going to be much more expressed, much more fulfilled, much more authentic as a person, much more present and mindful, and then you'll be able to be the healing force for others, because God knows we do need to heal from this. Our world is in a state of epidemic when it comes to this form of abuse, and the wars that have been waged, and the people that come out of those war zones are so deeply damaged and abused, and they just keep perpetuating this. So anyway, it's been with us forever, but it seems like it's on the uprise. So we need everything we can to counteract it, but it begins with us. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, let me know. If you have questions, let me know. If you know someone who's suffering from this, forward this video. It may save their sanity. And of course, if you like the video, give me a like, subscribe to the channel. I have so much more to share. I have two things going on: narcissistic abuse on one end, self-healing, self-empowerment, as well as my travel videos. So to show you that even after going through one of the worst devastations in life, you can still pick yourself up, and you can do what you've always wanted. So I'm doing it against all odds. My life's been leveled in the recent months, and maybe I'll make a video about it one day, about what happened to me. But for now, I just want to let you know there's hope on the other side. There's a way to heal it, and you will come out of it stronger, better, and more illuminated. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a beautiful day, and I will catch you in another video.